welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I am your host today, Jen, and I am joined by two writers who are here to talk about a novella that blew my mind this week, and I had such a good time with it. It is so much fun. It is so gross. It is so sweet. Like, there's so many contrary flavors going on. I really love how it all works together. So welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourselves and your book, please?
Okay, wonderful. Hi, thank you very much. My name is Shelley LaVigne, and the book we're going to be talking about today is The Flesh of the Sea, and I'll pass it over to my co-author and co-conspirator, Lor.
Hi, I'm Lor Gislason, and I also helped co-write The Flesh of the Sea, so I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, as I was just saying, I really loved this book. I love the tone. I love the characters. I love all the weird creatures in it, just everything. But before we get into it too much, could you tell us a little bit about your respective careers and how you came to this project together?
So I've known Shelley for a few years. We met through a writers kind of like support group. I say that in quotations, just like for fun. And we realized that we were like, I said that we came from the same like pond of ooze because our brains work so well together. And I had this idea for a pirate novella, and I was sort of like telling Shelley the pitch to be like, what do you think of this? And they were so excited, and they had so many things. They were like, you got to mention this, you should do this. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you just write it with me? Yeah, they said yes. They said yes. So I'm very thankful for that. And it led to this amazing and strange experience with writing this book, and I'm very happy about it.
And this isn't even our first time working together. We also worked together with our friend Eric to write a collection of short stories called Sick Stories from the Goop Troop. So yeah, it just felt kind of like a natural extension to just keep that partnership going. And this was such a cool idea. And I knew that if writing with Lor is so much fun, and I think we just have so much fun together, and we just kind of bring out goofiness and joy, and I don't know, I think we have just a similar kind of level of glee at these sort of strange creatures, goopy things, that it just felt like it was going to be kind of a really, really fun project to work on together, to like do this. And yeah, no, what was kind of cool is that I actually have like a master's degree in biology, so I got to bring a lot of that know-how, just using my degree for evil, but like not like actual evil, but just like a little evil. And it was
evil.
Literary evil. So it was just a really fun sort of opportunity to all those things coming together.
Cool. Yeah, that biology background, I imagine, lets you be really accurate about being, accurate grossness.
It was fun to sort of like use the sort of terminology or the kind of like the flavor of like it doesn't dive too deep into sort of the like glasses up the nose kind of biology sort of sense, but like bringing a little bit of that sensibility to it, mishmash with like Lor's extensive knowledge of like creatures, whether that's creatures in video games, movies, etc., and just kind of like melding that into this creation.
Nice. So how did the co-writing process work in action? Did you assign each other sections, or did you write every chapter together? What did it look like day to day?
Kind of both, I would say, because we had an initial outline where basically it was like, okay, well, I want to write this chapter. Like Shelley was going to write about parasitic wasps, and I was going to write about a worm. But we would edit and go over each other's work like constantly. So we got to the point where I couldn't tell you like if I wrote a part or if Shelley wrote a part. There are a couple like the very, very scientific stuff. It's like, oh, that was Shelley. But there's some stuff I'm like, I don't remember who wrote what specific lines because they just like they got so meshed in my head.
Yeah, because even if I was like taking the lead on like the parasitic wasp section, for instance, like Lor would come in and add additional things, right? And like so it kind of ended up feeling as much like you know we might have had sort of the genesis of certain ideas, but it really did, and it kind of like because of the fact that we worked on each other's stuff, and I think that created just like a really uniform voice throughout, and also like Lore has this really great ability with character voice to like create these like characters that feel really real and that have this strong sense of identity. And it was like, oh, okay, I just can just like roll with it, like gotcha, okay, understood. So yeah, no, and it was really funny because there were parts of it where I got so unsure who was writing what that I would be like, "Ah, Laura, nice line," and Laura was like, "I don't think that was me," and I was like, "Who knows at this point."
That's cool. Yeah, I'm really curious about like how writing together is different from writing solo. Do you feel like there was something that the collaboration like brought into your work like that wasn't there previously?
Yeah.
So we've said before that Shelley can be a I say this lovingly, an overwriter, and I am an underwriter. So like I always come in under word counts, and Shelley is always like, I gotta trim stuff. So we almost like balanced each other out in that way because they would come into my stuff and be like, give me more. And I would come into their stuff and be like, you've already said this, we can like snip here and there. So it did create this weird balance, but I'm also not great with like schedules and things like that. So I think Shelley's attention to detail and their love of to-do lists, I think really helped me out in that respect too.
And I think plot wise too, it was so nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off when we got stuck. Or when we were like, okay, well, there's this cool thing, like how are we going to fit this in? Or, yes, anding each other of like, that's a cool idea, but like push it even further. Or like, when you'd see the excitement and the glimmer in somebody's eye as you were like tossing ideas out there and you were like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that one. Yes, this one. So I think just like from the large scale, because like for both of us, I think we're used to writing stuff with much smaller casts, tighter plots, one location, maybe two, and this is the opposite of that. Especially for a novella, there's so many characters, there's so many locations. There's like character progression you have to keep in mind, but also like where they are. And I think having two heads to sort of puzzle that out was really helpful.
They did have to like make almost like a calendar of where they were because we wanted to be accurate to how long it would take for a ship to get to that kind of place back then.
That is a lot to kind of triangulate because you have to do that. And also like, when are these letters arriving and how many arrive together? Like that sounds really hard.
I'm sure we fudged a little bit because we have some creatures that assist with their travel time. But I'm sure if somebody really wanted to pick apart the details, it probably wouldn't make sense. But I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
I don't think I want to meet the person who's like that is their priority while reading. And like that's not
I'm like, have a little fun, okay? Go touch grass, please. There's sea monsters. Like, it's okay. It's okay if there's like one more letter that goes a little bit faster than you think it should,
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we've been dancing around him, so I'd love to talk a little bit about Wilford Bowen. He is delightful. I'm in like a really deep parasocial relationship with him right now. So lovable, so sweet. Could you talk about crafting him and his dearest Jean-Baptiste, and like why you were drawn toward the sort of like epistolary format?
I think honestly for both Wilford and Jean, they have aspects of both me and Shelley
Hmm.
within the character. So it's almost like it wasn't that hard to get into
Hmm.
writing as them because the like enthusiasm for
Hmm.
science that he would bring obviously is very easy for Shelley to fall into. And apparently the like very longing pining that Jean got into was easy for me for some reason. Just strange because it's not usually what I write, but I don't know.
Hmm.
But yeah, it uh I think John might have been a little bit harder to write because I wanted to make him consistent,
Hmm.
but it wasn't as hard as you might expect it to be. And the letter format is I my first book was written kind of in this um, multiple style where I switch back and forth, and I found that I really like writing in the letter style, and it felt like it fit with the time setting of
Hmm.
the pirate era. So it just felt like an easy choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, also when it comes to that stuff, I really love playing with form. Like, I think if you're going to write a book, you're writing a book. So you might as well write a book. You might as well play with what you have on hand. And, if you can do some interesting intertextual stuff, whether that's with footnotes or with different formats or where stuff lands on the page. Like there's a lot to play with there. And, you're writing a book, you're not writing a movie. Or, you take advantage of your form. And, doing also the letters, what's fun with them is that it comes from like a rich a rich background of epistolary, especially like epistolary is a big part of horror as well. So, it was a fun nod to that. And I think it was also kind of like just a great way to build tension, right? Because these letters are being written for somebody. Somebody is going to read them. When are they going to get to that person? Where is that person going to be in their own headspace, right? I think it adds kind of an interesting element than if you were just writing this in first or third person. So yeah, it kind of felt like a natural choice once I don't even think we even thought about writing any other format. We had briefly toyed with the idea of Jean being in just like first person, just like that. But then when the sort of idea of doing it as a diary entry came, like that felt very sort of natural, especially for him. Like, Wilford, more talkative, bringing people in, the conversationalist. And then you have sort of like Jean, who's like very sort of withdrawn within himself. Withdrawn isn't necessarily the right term, but like very much more like introspective. To like have him write a diary just feels like a great way for him to explore his own feelings rather than any other format. So I think it just kind of like fit with them in some ways.
Yeah, I think you're right that I don't think we had any other like I think it
Yeah.
was gonna be letters
Yeah,
from
that.
the get-go. It
Hmm.
just was like, I don't know, this is just the way it
All
is,
right.
I guess.
Hmm. 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 I think we both tend to have a little bit of like intuitiveness to how we write. And I think that kind of showed up in
Mhm.
that in some ways. It just felt right.
Yeah. It's kind of like efficient too, I was realizing as you were
Mhm.
sharing ideas, because like every time that you are relaying plot, you're also like building the relationship between them, like
Yeah.
it's doing double duty like all the time, which I feel like is why, it's a novella and it's a very like fast compulsive read, but you feel like you've just encountered such a big world that's just full of
Mhm.
so much weird stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. It's kind of wild to think about how much happens within, is it like 150 pages? I think it's
Something like
150
that.
pages.
Mhm. I love it. And I love Will's just like his outlook on life so much. It's so inspiring. Like and it's really funny to have like a narrator on like, essentially like cosmic horror and body horror and just being like, "Oh man, this is going to be great for my CV." Like this. this is going to get me into the Royal Society for sure.
It's almost like how I think we would react if this
Mhm.
was happening to us. Just like, whoa, that's so cool.
Mhm.
Instead of being
Mhm.
terrified as most people would be.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I take walks and I'm constantly like, whoa. And it's not like I'm going in crazy places that, people like I don't usually go through, but it's just sometimes if you have your eyes open, and you're ready to be sort of like taken aback and see wonder in the world, like you'll see it. And I think that that's kind of a great way to look at life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it speaks to his character,
Hmm.
makes you really like feel for him and root for him immediately. And like it also takes part in like the sort of grand tradition of like, late 18th, early 19th century like emo scientists, like they're all they all feel so much, while they're doing their mad science. Like
It's true. It's very true.
Hmm.
Hmm. So I'd love if we could talk a little bit about, what you might call like the cryptozoology aspect of it, designing all of these weird creatures. Um, Talk about that process, like how you sort of like, did you like bounce monsters off each other and design them? And how do you go about like evoking, the sort of like cosmic horror of the ineffable? Because it always is like a party trick a little bit. You're like, this is so horrifying, I can't describe it. Here I go. You know.
I do have to say, I really love the wording of bouncing monsters off of each other. I think that that's just a good visual. I like that. I think there was some of them that like Lore either had like ideas, like built up of like there's certain creatures towards the end. Um, and I think there was a couple of we would just sort of sit on these calls, these very long calls where we would just sort of be like, okay, what about this kind of monster? Okay, what about this? And there was inspiration with like for me, I have like a couple of like I have an illustrated Origin of Species. Yeah. Which hilariously was propping up my computer, and I didn't realize that as we were talking, the as we were going through this the first time. And I also have like a children's book of Darwin, and like flicking through that and trying to sort of get inspiration. Laura, do you want to talk about the other stuff that because you also brought a lot to the table?
There's one that's very directly inspired by a video game. But I'm not sure how much spoilers we want to get into. And also, one of them was partially inspired by a Pokemon, and then
Hmm.
Shelley kind of like took it and ran. Yeah, and like I was like, I want to have a worm, but then I had to really think about like, okay, well,
Hmm.
how would this actually work?
Hmm.
So there were initial ideas, and then we had to kind of like look back and be like, okay, well, if this was a real creature, because I think
Hmm.
we tried to make them like real
Yeah.
animals in a sense. So like how would they go about doing this? But the sea goddess was there from the start. That felt
Hmm.
very clear in my head when I told
Hmm.
Shelley about the idea. But the other ones kind of came into being as we went along.
Yeah. And sometimes also like inspired, like the parasitic wasp was like, well, parasitic wasps exist, but like, what if they were parasitizing humans? I think that there's just so many different places and so many different inspirations that you can take from. And then, but yeah, I agree with Laura that like we all try to sort of, to a certain degree, make them as scientifically plausible as they could be. Um, I mean, they're not, you never know. You never know that the sea is a dark and very poorly explored place. Like I think that that's what's cool is that especially using, okay, there's like a degree of like exploring places that Europeans have never been before. Like you have a lot of sort of untapped potential there, but like the sea itself, nobody's seen down there. Like aren't there's every once in a while it's like, wow, we thought this fish was like long extinct. However, like here it is. I think there was like a coelacanth found in like a food market. And they were like, what? So it's like there's so much down there that we don't know about, and there's so many creatures that are so far outside of what we're used to seeing just in our day-to-day life that like it just felt like there was so many different places we could go.
Nice. Yeah, and it draws on a long tradition of like, the sort of the medieval maps and the pirate maps,
Mhm.
monsters. It's like, yeah, there are monsters here and they're like gross and sexy. So like
I think those are two words that I think would
Mhm.
describe that very well, gross and sexy.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm like, I think I need that on a shirt. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so gosh, I really do love this book so much. And I read online that you have posited a sequel, either hypothetically or just, sort of like talking about the possibility of one. Is that something you feel like you will pursue, like writing more in this world, or?
I think so, but I think we're both doing several projects
Mhm.
right now, so I think it's more a matter of time because it is
Mhm.
like you have to put it as your main focus, and this was our main focus for so long that I
Yeah.
think we were both like we need a break from it, but also yeah, like we have a Google Doc of a bunch, we called it sequel notes, so we have a bunch of things we wrote down, but we did
Mhm.
talk about it being almost a duology with like one being sort of like Wilford's journey and the other one being John's journey. But yeah, hopefully, probably not
Mhm.
for a bit, but hopefully.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think it's what's fun with it is that it is like a contained novella that like answers like, it tells a story. But it also creates a very wide world with so much extra potential. And there was ideas that we didn't fit in. There's like one monster in particular that I want so bad, so bad. And there's more story to tell, I think, with that relationship as well. But we're just very aware of the fact that like, yeah, we are busy people. We have a lot on the go. But I think it was so much fun, and I think also writing with Lore like gives me a sense of joy that like I don't always experience when I'm writing by myself because I tend to explore the sort of darker things, but with Lore there's like a lot more sort of like joy. And so I don't want this to be the last thing that we work on together.
I
That's
mean, I think we will work together
Oh yeah.
regardless. It's just
Hmm.
kind of like an inevitable. You
Hmm.
can't get rid of me at this point, Shelley. You're stuck with me.
Yeah. I was gonna make the substance joke, but I don't want to spoil
Yeah.
it.
well, I'm so glad to hear that. And in terms of like your other projects, are you able to talk about any of those? I know that sometimes in early stages, you can't, but like what is on your horizon?
I am forever working on a novella called Cosmic Dyke Patrol that hopefully will come out next year, hopefully. And I do a lot of editing work, so I am behind the scenes a lot these days. I have a project with Little Ghost Books, who is a bookstore slash publisher. We did a collab called Little Guts, which I think is planned to come out next month. So hopefully I'll have more on that soon.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Um, I have a couple short stories coming out soon. I've been lucky in having some sort of a little bit of momentum in that direction. But also, what's really exciting is that next summer I have a novella coming out with Haydeny, which is the same publisher who did this, and it is an expansion on a short story. Sapphic cosmetic erotic horror that yeah lots of keywords there. And it was part of a anthology called Scissor Sisters. It was my story in there, and it's getting a longer treatment, so I'm currently working on edits of that. I was just reading it today and I got to one of the saucy sections and I was having a blast. So I can't wait for that to be out next summer.
Well, that's all very exciting. And yeah, you both as individuals or as a collaborative team are welcome back to the show anytime
Oh.
to talk about any of those things. Because yeah, I really can't wait to see what you do next. And I love the stuff that Hayden A is doing right now. Like we talked to Lynn's McLeod about Sunday
Mhm.
a while back, and it's just such great projects. Like very cool. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay, listeners, it's now your turn. Please check out The Flesh of the Sea. It is out now, so please head to your favorite library or independent bookstore or, deep sea cave to get a copy of this book. Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. It is time to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.